What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be going over my most anticipated build for Diablo 4, the Blurred Beast. This is a pure werewolf build that focuses on combining the core skill Shred with high amounts of poison damage. I'm not exactly sure how this build will work, but there's some very cool interactions and mechanics here that I'm really excited to test and find out. Before we go too far into the build, I want to go over the main aspect here, which is the Blurred Beast. It says, while dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poison enemies, instantly dealing up to 90% of the poisoning damage to them. And we can scale this on our neck and our weapon to be even bigger. The idea behind this is when you take one of the upgrades to Shred, all of your 3 Shred abilities will dash and it will activate this. So basically, whenever you attack a poison target, it won't consume the poison, but it'll add the remaining poison damage into the Shred attack. I think this is really, really good because there's another aspect kind of like this with Pulverize, but it actually consumes the poison. This won't consume the poison. So I think the cool thing about this is it gives another way to sort of scale poison damage. Normally poison can't crit or be affected by attack speed, but with this here, the faster you attack and the faster you dash, the more you can proc and activate the remaining damage of your poison. I think this will start to ramp up really, really, really fast. There are a lot of different ways you can build this. I went for a more offensive way with the wolf pets, turning them into werewolves. You can certainly be much more defensive as well by dropping these and getting like Earthen Bulwark or converting Debilitating Roar into a werewolf skill. But yeah, this is a very much work in progress. I just kind of wanted to go over what I would try like the first time I get my hands on this and go from there. So let's take a look at the skills. So starting off, we'll be taking the werewolf basic skill Claw because this will be a werewolf build. We have the upgrade for 10% attack speed, and then Claw also will apply a little bit of poisoning damage over 6 seconds. We go into Shred next. We put 5 points in that because that'll be our main ability. And then we have 30% attack speed for Shred. So this will help us proc Blurred Beast more often. And then we also get healed whenever we hit an enemy. Finally, this is the most important thing on Shred. The second and third attack also perform a dash. This is what's going to activate Blurred Beast. So you really need to take this one so you can activate it on all 3 parts of Shred. We also get 20% multiplied crit damage on this, so we'll focus on some crit and crit damage. Here we have the crit chance to close enemies, so that'll work really well. We get 9% move speed while in werewolf form, which will be almost the entire time. We go over here, we have Blood Howl. So Blood Howl is going to heal us, and then with this node behind it, anytime we get a kill, it'll reduce the cooldown of Blood Howl, on top of giving us 15% attack speed for 4 seconds. So the idea is you can kind of keep this up pretty often. You're going to be doing a lot of healing as your defensives as a werewolf. We also have increased non-physical resistances. So this is, your elemental resistances, fire, cold, lightning, that kind of thing. And then we also have vigilance, which gives us 15% damage reduction for 6 seconds after using a defensive skill. The idea is we use Blood Howl, we get 15% damage reduction for 6 seconds. And if you can get enough kills in that time, you can reactivate Blood Howl to get another damage reduction up again. Next, we're going into the companion portion of this build. Like I said, you don't have to run companions with a setup like this. This is just the version I'm going to try first. The main one being Poison Creeper. This got heavily buffed in the Server Slam beta. It does a little bit of poisoning damage to a single target at a time, but whenever you activate it, it's a huge AoE that puts a massive poison on every target in the AoE. Behind it, we have the immobilized duration is increased by 1 second. This is okay. But more importantly, the active poisoning duration is increased by 3 seconds. Now, this does not spread out the damage that it would normally do. This adds on top of the damage. So you're more than doubling your active poison damage. So this is going to be really important for this build. And finally, we have 30% bonus damage to our companion skills. So the other companion is going to be the werewolf. I wasn't sure if I wanted to include this one, but there is an aspect which we'll go over that makes it so your werewolf can spread rabies, and we'll talk about rabies in a second. But basically, they're going to add some more poisoning damage on. They synergize really well with the build anyway, so I thought it would be cool to kind of include them, and then you can look at poison damage, companion damage, shred damage, and kind of pile all of that up. So hopefully it works really well together. We have wolves dealing increased damage to immobilized, stunned, slowed, or poison targets. So this is a nice damage buff to the wolves. And then finally, when you critically strike, your wolves gain attack speed for 3 seconds. So this will be really good because we're going to be focusing on crits with Shred. And then our wolves are going to be super strong with the werewolf aspect. So getting more attack speed will be really good for them. When we go all the way down here, rabies is what I was talking about. Basically, you bite, do a little bit of damage, and then you apply a poison over 6 seconds. Rabies was a little underwhelming damage-wise. I'm hoping maybe it'll see a little bit of a buff, but the idea with this is your wolves will be able to spread this as well with the aspect. The upgrades, the damage increases over the lifetime of the disease, dealing 30% bonus damage at max duration. I think this synergizes really well with like Blurred Beast doing remaining poison damage, so this will be really, really strong. And then we also take rabies will spread faster. So basically you can use rabies on one target and then it'll spread out to all the targets. You can use Poison Creeper and then you just have a ton of big poisons on everything. Poison enemies are slowed by 8%. This isn't super needed, but it is nice because it will give us access to damage to crowd controlled targets on anything we've poisoned. Critical strikes with werewolf skills deal % of their base damage is poisoning damage. This is really nice too because we're going to be focusing on crits with Shred, adding more and more poisons, making Blurred Beast do even more and more damage. And then finally, poison enemies take 30% additional crit damage. Again, we're focusing on those crits on top of it. Poison can't crit, but Shred can. So lastly, our capstone. I'll be honest, the capstones are a little rough for this build. They're not great. Ursine Strength might even be better because you don't actually need Werebear form to get the while healthy deal increased damage. But I would definitely, I'm going to try the werewolf one first. Every 6th werewolf skill critically strikes and deals increased damage. I think, it definitely has some potential to work with it. So I would try this one first. So taking a look at the aspects next, I removed the uniques for this. We'll talk about the uniques in a sec, but I wanted to show, just in case before you get a unique, what you can use until then. Remember, you don't have to put all these on the exact ones I put. Like the things on the rings can go on your offhand, your weapon, your gloves. The amulet in particular, though, I would keep this on the amulet because amulets give 50% bonus. So looking at the first one, we have Vigorous Aspect. This is just damage reduction while shapeshifted into a werewolf, which is going to be 99% of the time. So this is really good. Disobedience. I tested this in beta. This will stack from your poison damage as well. So if you walk up into a pack of mobs and you click Poison Creeper, that'll give you stacks for hitting all of them. And then every time the poison ticks, this gives you a stack. So this will have very high uptime on this build. Night Howler's Aspect. Bloodhowl increases your crit chance by 5 to 10%. We like crit chance. But the more important thing actually is Bloodhowl also affects nearby companions and players for 3 seconds. What this means is the crit chance and we have the attack speed and it heals. All of those will work on our werewolf companions, which is really important. The wolves had a little bit of trouble staying alive, but with this, it should not only keep them alive, but give them both crit and attack speed. The pants, not a super great choice, but might is pretty solid. If you weave a claw in here and there, especially if you can get it up to 6 seconds, it won't feel too bad. On the boots, normally I like running Ghostwalker, but it's kind of hard to get unstoppable in this build. Werewolf is definitely squishier than the other Druid builds, and you can work stuff in like we talked about with Earthen Bulwark for unstoppable, but for this build we're going to just go with Wind Striker, which will give us a nice little move speed boost. The weapons, again, it doesn't have to be on the weapons, but we have Edge Master. I'm not perfectly sure how this will work, but it just says skills will deal increased damage based on your available primary resource. Maybe this will work on companions. If you use Poison Creeper and your wolves while you have max resource, are you going to get the maximum value? Not sure on that one. Either way, it synergizes pretty well with Shred because Shred spends resource on the first attack, but not the next two. And then you also will have, as you see later in the Paragon boards, Lust for Carnage. You'll be able to generate Spirit while you're using it. So I think this has pretty good synergy. Aspect of the Stampede. This gives both of our companions one additional companion. So we'll have 3 wolves and you actually get 2 Poison Creepers. For the Poison Creeper, it's not super big. It'll have a little bit better uptime on single target, but mainly it's for the next one, which is Shepherd's Aspect. So this makes it so that our core skill Shred will do more damage for each pet. And then the Stampede gives us 2 more pets because it's 1 for each of our companions. So that's another, if you have 8%, 16% core skill damage. Aspect to the Alpha. This is what's really important. This is going to change our wolves into werewolves and make them deal 100% additional damage, and they can spread rabies. I'm not perfectly sure how this can work, but if you have 3 wolves and then you use rabies on one target, can all 3 of them also apply rabies, and you can have 4 rabies on one target, and then you blurred beast. And see, there's so many cool things in this build that I really want to try and I really want to test out. It sounds like it has a lot of potential. Maybe you can only have 1 rabies on a target at a time and it won't work, but I definitely want to try this out, and I think it sounds really cool. Finally, we talked about blurred beast. Like I said, you want to put this on your amulet because it'll give you a 50% boost. So instead of, if you get it to 90%, it'll be 45% plus 90%, so 135% of the poison damage dealt to them. So next we're going to take a look at our boons. In the deer tree, you pretty much are always going to take wariness regardless of what build you're playing. The other ones aren't super great options. 10% reduced damage from elites, nice little bonus. In the eagle tree, this is going to depend a little bit on your gear. I believe Avian Wrath is probably always going to be the way to go. But if you don't have enough crit chance yet, you're going to probably take Scythe Talons, and then also swooping attacks for attack speed. The attack speed probably won't be more damage than crit damage, but it might make the build feel a little better. So this is kind of going to be up to you. Basically, Scythe Talons, swooping attacks, Avian Wrath, kind of move it around what feels good to you. But Avian Wrath is most likely going to get you the most damage if you have the crit to work with it. On Wolf, we have, this is really important, Pack Leader. Critical strikes have up to a 20% chance to reset the cooldowns of your companion skills. What this means is whenever you're shred dashing around, anytime you get a crit, you have a chance to reset the cooldown on Poison Creeper, which is our main source of really big AoE poisoning damage. So that's really important. The wolves also do a really nice leap attack. So being able to reset that will be a nice little single target burst as well. Snake Tree, we have Masochistic. This is possibly the most important one. Critical strikes while shapeshifting skills heal you for 3% maximum life. You're going to be shredding and AoEing constantly and hopefully getting a bunch of crits. So this is going to be one of your main defensive sources of the healing here. If we look at the gems, there's not too many good options, but we can take the damage over time on the weapon. I'm not sure how strong this will be, if there's really a better option, but I think this might be kind of interesting to really pump up our poisons. We have maximum life in the chest pieces. We can't really take advantage of Fortify as Werewolf, unfortunately. Werewolf is definitely tougher to work with compared to the other Druid builds, but you know, we can take maximum life, and we have a bunch of max life healing on our Shred and Masochistic, so that does synergize well. And last, we have Diamond for the resistances. You can always change this to a singular resist if you're missing a resist, otherwise stick with the Diamond. This is the fun part. We get to go over some of the uniques that might really work with this build. You don't have to use these. I just wanted to give you guys some ideas of ones that I think would synergize really well with this. First up on the helm, we have Andario's Visage. Most people are going to use a Harlequin crest on the headpiece, which obviously is extremely good, but I thought this could be pretty cool if you got it to try it out. Basically, it gives you all stats, attack speed, which is nice, poison resistance, and most importantly gives you lifesteal, which I think is one of, if not the only places to get lifesteal. And we're kind of focusing on doing a ton of healing as Werewolf. And then it has a lucky chance to trigger a Poison Nova, applying poisoning damage. So that really just kind of like stacks on top of everything we're already trying to do. So I thought it would be pretty cool to try that. Next, we have Mad Wolf's Glee. This makes it so you no longer reset into human form. You will just always be in werewolf form unless you use a human skill. So if you use either Poison Creeper, you will go into a human for a second, but otherwise you will stay in the werewolf, and all your werewolf skills will gain +2 ranks. So that's pretty solid. Temerity, this is one of my favorite uniques that I do try to put into every Druid build because I just think it's really good and it synergizes extremely well with Druid. Basically, this works as sort of like an overheal. So if you're at maximum health and you do any sort of healing, which we've talked about how much healing we're doing, Masochistic, Shred, Bloodhowl, right? This will turn it into a barrier over your life. So instead of just losing all that extra healing you're doing, you're turning it into extra sort of life. And the Druid's main stat willpower increases your healing received. So you're going to be getting a lot of extra healing that goes to waste if you don't have this. I think this is really, really good. This is kind of cool. The Waxing Gibbous, crit damage, damage to injured enemies, life on kill, ranks to Shred. Gains stealth for 2 seconds when killing enemies with shred. Okay. Breaking stealth with an attack grants ambush, which guarantees critical strikes for up to 2.5 seconds. I don't know if this is actually good, but it sounds so cool. You get a kill, you go into stealth, you pop out for the next 2.5 seconds, everything is critting. I think this sounds really, really cool, and I would really want to try this out. Lastly, we have Ring of Starless Skies. I'm not sure how good this one will be, but I think it's something, just to take note of. Each consecutive core skill cast reduces the resource cost of your next core skill. I don't think this build will have too many resource problems, especially with Lust for Carnage, but it is something to keep in mind. If you do get this, it could work pretty well. So some of the stats you'll want to look for this build. Willpower is the main stat for Druid, so you're definitely going to look for that. Movement speed is always nice. Resource cost reduction, I think, can be really strong. Being able to use more shreds before you have to use your basic attack. Cooldown reduction works well with Bloodhowl, Rabies, more poison creepers, more wolf attacks, really solid. Crit chance, crit damage, the usual. Damage to crowd controlled enemies, because anything that we have that's poisoned will be slowed, so that'll work. Damage to close enemies, damage to elites. Poison damage to increase the damage of the poison. Then there's also damage to poisoned targets. So I'm not sure if that like double dips. If you can reset your poison creeper and you put poison on, and you can apply another poison while they're poisoned. Plus ranks to your skills, so you can get ranks to shred. You can also get ranks to all companion skills, and we have 2 companion skills, so that'll be really good with that too. Last up is going to be the Paragon board. I've mentioned this in a lot of my videos, but this is all really theory crafting, so this might be nowhere even close to what's best. The idea here is I kind of want to give you guys my opinions on what boards or legendary nodes and glyphs that I think would work with this build. So, you can kind of follow this, but take it with a grain of salt. We might learn completely different things on launch, but I still think it's good to kind of do the exercise, go through, look at some of the things that could be really good. So everyone has to start in the starter tree. We'll work our way up the right side. One of the glyphs that I think are going to be really good for this build, Tracker. Basically, it makes it so your poisoning damage effects last longer. And we know that this actually increases the damage of poisons because of the way Poison Creeper works. You increase the duration of Poison Creeper. It doesn't just spread out the damage over a longer amount of time. It actually takes the damage and adds on to the end of it. This is going to make not only all your poisoning damage do more damage, it's going to work really well with Blurred Beast because it does damage of the remaining poison. So if we have a longer poison, the first hit is going to do even more damage, and we'll be able to do Blurred Beast for even longer. The bonuses on it, every dex, you're going to do more damage to poison targets. So this is really solid. This is probably one of the areas you'll come back to look to pick up some more dex later on. I should have said that I do make the board out to around level 90-ish. You get 20 Paragon points from Renown, so I didn't include those in case you don't fill out all your Renown. And most people probably aren't going to push too far past like somewhere in the early 90s if I was to guess. So it doesn't use every single point, obviously, but I'll show you some of the places you can go if you do get more points. So this is one of them. You can come here, dex, dex, dex. There's some resistance and willpower here, and this will help fill out your dex on this glyph. You do need to level up the glyphs to have more radius. So early on, it won't cover very far. So you won't really be able to do this early, but you can do it later. Moving up, one of the boards that are going to be really good is the Lust for Carnage board for this node. Critical strikes with werewolf skills restore 2 spirit. Now, I don't know for sure, but I think if you attack in an AoE with Shred, you will make it so that every single crit will restore 2 spirit. So I think this is going to be really good for making it so you don't have to use your basic attack very often. The glyph we have here is Bane. Poisoning damage effects have a 10% chance to deal double the amount of damage over their duration. Now, this can be interpreted a couple different ways. Maybe it's whenever you apply a poison, there's a 10% chance that it'll just do double damage for the whole duration. Maybe each time it ticks, it has a 10% chance to do double the damage. Either way, I think this probably is pretty solid. It also has increased poison damage for the bonuses. So I think it works pretty well with the build either way. But yeah, Lust for Carnage is going to be a really solid board. The other really good board is going to be Heightened Malice. While there are 3 or more poisoned enemies nearby, you deal 45% increased damage. Our whole thing is about poisoning everything, using rabies, poison creeper to just spread poisons. This is going to be getting us constantly a bunch of damage. So you definitely want to try to pick this up early. We can travel like down through here. The pathing feels a little awkward, but in the middle, it's pretty good. We have damage to poisoned enemies and poison damage. So these are all really, really solid. We go down into the glyph. This is one of my favorite kind of little corners. If you get a glyph that gives bonus to all magic nodes like Fang and Claw, you can get a nice little pathway through a lot of the magic nodes back here. And you can even grab like this Dex node once you have some extra points, and it'll give you a lot of value. Fang and Claw, while in Werewolf, which we are, close enemies take 12% increased damage from you. So that's another damage multiplier that'll be pretty solid. I also have Ancestral Guidance. This feels really bad to path like this, so I would like to try to find another way to do this. But the node itself is really solid. After spending 75 spirit, deal 30% increased damage. We're going to be spending a good amount of spirit with Shred. It'll be a little awkward because Shred only spends spirit on the first attack, but overall, I think this will probably end up being more damage in the long run. But like I said, I don't really like this pathing to get here, so definitely have to work on some other ways to go about it. Glyph I have here, I would definitely try to get the Werewolf glyph in your build anywhere. 10% damage reduction while in Werewolf form. Werewolf doesn't have a ton of damage reduction, so being able to pick up a little bit here and there wherever you can, I think will go a really long way. And then you also do increased damage while in Werewolf form, which is pretty important. There is one other kind of tree that you can use. I'll build it out here real quick just to show it, which is the Constricting Tendril tree. I had a lot of trouble like pathing to the node and it feeling good. Nature magic skills have up to a 15% chance to entangle the enemies with vines. The problem with this is we don't actually use nature magic. Our werewolf skills aren't considered nature, so we can't even apply this. I know people are probably gonna be asking about this, which feels really awkward because I feel like werewolf was supposed to be focused around all the poison stuff. There are some ways you can technically work this into the build and proc it, but I think the chance is low. The damage is, it's good damage if you could get it to proc, but I think it's pretty awkward to try to get this. The board itself doesn't super work either. Like there's more nature magic skill damage, which we don't have the nature magic skills. But yeah, some of the other places you can put points. Down here in the Heightened Malice tree, we have damage to poison enemies and damage to elites. This cluster over here is really, really solid. You can grab all the magic nodes with it as well. And then one of the most important things you can do is just go back to your glyphs and add points in. So for this glyph, it's intelligence. So you kind of look through, oh, there's an intelligence node, there's an intelligence node, right? I tried to path it so you can kind of grab some of those things in each of the glyphs. But the thing with the glyphs are you have to level them up before they have a bigger radius and can fit more. But yeah, so that's going to be it. Again, very, very theory crafted, in progress. Don't take this build to heart. I think there's a really cool mechanics. This is easily my most anticipated build. Like I said, I think there's some really cool stuff going on, and there might be something kind of hidden in there that could be really, really strong. I would definitely keep an eye on this build. But yeah, please ask any questions in the comments down below, about this build, about Druid, whatever. I'm playing a lot of Druid. I'm trying to do a lot of content for Druid. I really, really like the class, and I really want to help other people enjoy it as well. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.